Yo, what's up guys? Siege tournament round 4 Origin. Currently rank 1 guild, at least going into the tournament. We had the same points as Aftermath EU, so it's about rank 1, rank 2. First round against Havoc. And in all honesty, Havoc kind of was on the point of just throwing in whatever defenses at us, being like, we're just happy to make it to round 4 and we just call it a day with that. We can super try hard, but there's definitely a pretty big gap between the top 4, or like top 4 guilds and outside of top 4 guilds. So for them, they were like, let's not just stress too much about it. Let's just have fun and we'll just see how it works. And that's kind of how they did it. And that's also kind of resulting in what kind of defenses they placed. And it was a pretty chill one over here for us to just get our first round in. But that's what mostly happens in the first round as a top 4 guild, I would say. So as you can see, there's a lot of cleave hits in there. Also, a lot more test shards popping up on defense, which is kind of funny to see. It's not a bad unit per se. It does have pretty high base. It can single target strip plus also stun right away, and then also AoE stun if things aren't on will. So does have some speed chasing mechanic in there. But then again, there's still a few ways to outspeed it, and if you're just faster, that also does help. I must say towards the finals, the hits became a little bit more difficult for me to do. I will tell about like how much did I end up with all of the sieges. I'm not allowed to show everything, as normally that happens. But yeah, I would say that this time around, it was a bit more difficult for me, I would say. Less LDs to be used, at least more towards the final. So for now, it's kind of all similar hits that I normally do. Lots of Robos, lots of Sianas, lots of the Siri, that kind of stuff. Robo has been kind of disappointing me in this whole tournament. You will see a little bit more about that later, but in this case, if the enemy is that slow, it doesn't really matter all too much. It's one of those things I could maybe Tiana check, but Tiana's like 4 base speed lower than a Robo, or even 5 base speed lower than a Robo. That's kind of where it becomes the edge of like, do I want to go for a speed contest against the Jogun on 24 with the Tiana on 24? It is doable-ish for me, but it's also kind of on the edge. Also, now we have the buff Rahul, which also does have the speed lead. But what I've noticed personally, we actually had a few Rahul defenses winning for us, I would say. But I felt like every Rahul defense was just simply food for some kind of Hagang Amber +1. Like, could be Bloodjust, could be Tricks, could be whatever. And normally I'm not that big on hitting net force, but this team is something that just kind of works every time, all the time, against a lot of teams. So if you want to make a good 4-star, you want to make sure that you're not being able to be hit by this. Or yeah, that's just the main important thing. Like, Agrius is just crazy strong used in the right scenario. And you see a lot of those. Like, we even had guildies that already had like 9 Agriuses and that kind of stuff. Me personally, I only had like 3 or so. I don't hit net force that often. But if I do, it's either an Agrius or a Lucian. Like, I don't really do anything else. I got 2 Mirenes right now, so it's just Mirenes Lucians, Dova Lucians, and that kind of good stuff. And that's literally about it right there. But as you can see, every hit I've done so far is just straight up cleave here, cleave there, cleave this, cleave that. It's just kind of how it works for me these days. Pretty tanky Narsha right there, which is a nice trap. That's also most of the thing. Like, what makes a good defense is a defense that traps things. If it were to kill my Siri in the mid over there, I would have had a little bit of a more difficult fight. But I also have a lot of additional damage by speed on the pure vanilla cookie, and that just helps for more damage. And with that hit, we're already looking at 10 hits into Havoc. All cleaves hit, so it went a little bit fast over there, but that was 10 out of 10 against Havoc. Moving on against the fight against Doubt. They definitely did put up a pretty good fight over there. Doubt is absolutely top 4 guild at the moment. They're not top 2 material, but definitely top 4 right there. So definitely a very strong guild, and I would even maybe give them the 3rd place. Like 3 and 4 is mostly kind of close once again, but I would give them a 3rd place, at least for how they played in this one. I don't even remember who Aftermath EU played against in their 5th round, but I felt like they did not put up as much as a fight as that Doubt was doing, but maybe it could be a bias over there. Either how, we start off with my favorite hit. The reason that Doubt was that strong, I think that Doubt offense, and it's always been like that, Doubt offense never been that good. But Doubt defense is pretty nasty. Like, this defense with a Maximilian Laura and a Gojo is arguably one of the stronger defenses in game, I would say. because bruisering this is kind of nasty. Outspeeding this can be difficult as well. And if they make it fall on a specific trap, you can also not really cleave it that well. So there's a lot of options to it that with the right builds, that this team can be one of the best teams out there if you have a lot of them. However, it is 3 specific LD5s that are not easy to replace. I think the Gojo is the easiest to replace on Adriana the Justice on Wind these days, which we have seen other guilds also pick up. But these 3 together, if you put good runes to them and you make specific traps on them and you would have a lot of those, that can rock you a lot of wins in the guild. And in this case, I use my Chroma, which is one of those units that can put the silence on one of the 2 things and then just start rocking a little bit of damage, 2 supports next to it. It makes it doable. Then I had 1 hit, which I couldn't show because someone had to go over me. The main thing that happened over here, it was not the best of offenses at all, because normally you want to use a Hey Gang against something that has AoE strip. In this case, we had the Zhongshalao stated at a S2 start, and he went for an S2 start on Amber when everything was willed, and he stole my will. So Amber moved into will potentials out there, and then on the first rotation, this thing stunned the whole team. So bad team, in all honesty, a little bit unlucky, but more a bad team than unlucky, I would say. Then moving on to the next, I think I had intel on this one that I was faster. I'm not too sure. I think it was, or I just like heavily speed checked it. No, I think I just speed checked this one because, in all honesty, the odds of him messing me up, it could be a Swift on a Iris, which could kind of mess me up, but I'm semi-confident in my speeds these days where I would just send Adriana's on 28s against that. Then another Rahul team over there. I did already use a few other units. We did miss the strip over there, but I used my Lime. I was like, I kind of want to have a backup strip. I already used my tricks. If I had tricks available, I would have used tricks. Another good unit is that Nobara, because all of the skills they do, and AI will start using skills, they just drain half HP. Which makes the Nobara kind of a water recap, but if the enemy uses skills, it's even stronger. So Nobara, really good unit. Then also one of my favorite hits, I always like to use Robo into Nephthys and Asiana. Lots of pushbacks, lots of damage. Plus you have the option to go for an S2 over here, get a full bar, or you just use it later, something along those lines. But it's always really strong to use a Siana next to that many debuffs. Then another different kind of style, in case that you do have the Gojo, but you don't have the Laura, then you could put a Triton in the middle. It is a little bit slower, and therefore it gives me more options to simply say, I outspeed it. Maximilian in most cases isn't super high on the defensive stats. Plus, none of these units in most cases have super high offensive stats. Like, it's kind of hard to put good damage to a Gojo and still make it max accuracies from what I've noticed. Not sure if the runes on these Gojos just kind of suck, but fighting a lot of Gojos, I kind of have noticed that. And from there, it's just kind of a cleanup. Maybe not the most clean of teams, could go wrong here and there, but it did work out in this scenario. And then my final hit of today, which was actually kind of a mess up, maybe not the greatest of teams. I used a Robo, but the whole team was on Will Runes and had multiple shield sets. So therefore the Robo S2 didn't strip anything, and then after that you straight up die. A guildie of mine mentioned it later, which I should have done. Robo skill 3 is a better stripper against multiple shield sets than the S2 is. Because in this case, I stripped absolutely 0 Will Runes. And yeah, then you just die against this. If I were to strip maybe like 1 or 2, I could have at least made some kills and then clean up from there. But in this case, I did not strip anyone. And then it's super messed up. However, as you have been counting, that was 8 hits over there. There were 2 hits that I can't show, unfortunately. However, 8 out of 2, not the best of records, but we did win this round. AKA, I got carried. Moving on to the next round, which was our finals against Aftermath EU. They had a whole bunch of nasty defenses. So for that reason, throwing in more LDs at the start right away. I do have the Kiara, which is kind of a different version of the Ming. It is a little bit slower, but it enables me to go for 2 ignored defenses right from the get-go, which is a really strong combination. Like, I don't think it gets much stronger than this if you do outspeed, but you have to outspeed. That's one thing. Then we had to take a tower pretty fast. And what do we do if we take a tower pretty fast? We just sent in the Mirene. So it is a speed gamble right there if you outspeed the Nashor, but I did in this case. I also did it in that case right after, but I forgot to share that one. So that's 2 Lucians, 2 Mirenes straight off the bat. And this is probably the most bruiser-ish hit that I did. We kind of just needed like something safe counter-ish. So some Gildy kind of came up with double reviver, nonsense, go for a kinky, and then just go for a bruiser fight over there, which is very doable if the enemy doesn't have any kind of form of healing. Sure, the Chilling has a little bit of self-healing, self-sustaining if he starts stripping and doing anything. But this is just the typical team. You get to 100 resistance whole team, you make it super tanky, and you make sure they survive. You have death breaks in there. You have a little bit of HP scaling damage on left and middle. And yeah, you just go from there, and that's just the main thing it is. Also for the kinky, you just go additional damage artifacts. So an S2 like this barely does do any damage, whereas a skill 1 would have maybe done a little bit more. But in the end, it's one of those hits. It just takes a little bit of time. It's nothing too bad. It's also what Aftermath EU did pretty interesting is they had a lot of different net 4. So they had this net 4, but they also had like 4 different net 4s, and they were just rotating those between towers, which was pretty interesting to see. Was a cool strategy to see right there, because most of the time it's like one net 4 defense, maybe switch out to a later one. But in their case, they switched out a lot more. Also, I got the unfortunate news. I had 5 offenses that I had to hide. So I can still show this offense over here, but this will also be the final offense for me for this tournament. I did get a 10-10 in the end, because you're gonna see some nice damage coming in over here. How much are we dealing over there? I had some damage on Dark, which meant that we have 25k per hit over here on the right on a relatively probably tanky Valeska, which makes this thing do an insane amount of damage. Legolas is a fun unit right there. But yeah, as mentioned, I had 5 hits I can't show on this siege. It was a very close one in the end. It was 14 defenses against 15 defenses as a victory. However, they had a little bit of a better map play towards the end. And also they had a lot better of tempo towards the early part of the siege. And tempo really determines of like how many towers can you take at what moment, and how does it end up for your towers looking towards the end. So therefore, they were better than us this time around. So we got a rank 2 this time. Unfortunately, if we were to take Legend, we would have been the first guild in Europe that has 5 Legends in a row, because we are tied with Aftermath EU for 4 Legends in a row right now. And we kind of lost our streak with this. Is what it is. Was a pretty fun siege. Also, the reason that there's 5 hidden offenses at the moment was mainly due to me having to use specifically what the guild uses, because I was a little bit more clueless during this siege, so the guild did carry me, for sure. So there you have it, Origin being a rank 2. Smash Bros was the other side that Aftermath EU played against. Yep, that's true. But that does also give us a fair bit of rewards. And those rewards we can always translate into other things. So in this case, you have cool animations. You definitely have cool animations, which might mess up the whole R5 team, but whatever. You have cool, well, at least you have an animation, let's call it that way. Between these two, let's just give it to this. I don't have a Geldnir, and if I ever get a Geldnir, well, then sucks to be me. Simple as that. But what's more important than those skins, which I will equip in a second, is going to be going to the shop, going to be a, where this thing at, is that Glory, and then Guilds. And then you have this special shop thingy for just the tournament. Seals, yep, we got a whole bunch of those. And what do we buy from a whole bunch of those? LD scrolls, of course. And we can buy 11 LD scrolls. If we also add the LD count to the table, we can see that I'm already a 700 LDs dry since the last time I pulled an LD5. Someone just said only LD owners are sackers today. And I just tell him, let's prove him wrong. We did have some people pick up some LDs from those kind of things, but let's see, let's prove this dude wrong. Let's see if we can go more dry. And currently with the whole LD count, I should be having 7.8 LD5s. I only have 4. So I'm on halfway the rate on average for all of this thus far, which is kind of demotivating. Especially if you find to pull something good, it's a Gojo and they nerf it within half a fucking season. Didn't even get one good season on that thing. Either out, just more dry streak for the LDs. Is what it is. I'm still expecting to at some point pull like 3 LD5s in a row, and then it kind of evens out the number, and then people are gonna call me employee. And that is why I still keep track of this number, because it just is something that if you pull 3 in a row, it's probably just averaging out for me. It's not that I have crazy good RNG, because look at those numbers. Ooh, one more thing. Have you guys seen this one yet? That's the skin for next season, and they are looking Gucci. That's some nice looking skin right there. Kind of feel like that every element kind of looks the same as another element, but then again, they're looking good. Would be nice to have a button to force in the idle animation, because now I'm already waiting for a few seconds, and you never exactly know if a unit has an idle animation. Most of them do, but sometimes I was waiting for 2 minutes for this. Let me just do a button of start idle animation. Countess, it's not that hard. This one, for example, has a pretty dope idle animation, summoning some kind of like ancient ruined city, whatever. I'm also not too sure if that's supposed to be a black hole. Does a black hole from underneath would look like that? Well, then from every angle that you look at it, you still get this kind of view, I guess. Which maybe is relatively sense-making. I have no clue about the physics on that. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.